everyone. Welcome to the Dreamcatcher podcast, a place where your dreams can find a voice. In our unpredictable and ever-changing world, we're constantly in a state of trying to figure out how to sow our seeds for a happy life. The information age has turned our attention into a currency that's being mined, and time is an increasingly scarce resource. But what if it wasn't? What if we had the ability to take control of how we trade our energy for time and increase our vitality to live our life to the fullest? That's what my guest Pedram Shojai and I are going to be discussing today. Pedram is a former Taoist monk, doctor of Chinese medicine, and qigong master. He is a New York Times bestselling author of several books, including The Urban Monk, and the producer of multiple films and series. He's lectured on wellness around the world and is known for his no-nonsense approach towards teaching esoteric concepts to readers in an easy-to-understand way. In this interview, Pedram is going to share his thoughts on how we can make healthier choices in our life and design a lifestyle that fulfills our needs. We'll also talk about the major energy drainers in the modern world and what we can do to regain vitality. If you like what you heard, please don't forget to like, rate, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Thanks. Hi, Pedram. How are you doing today?
Hi, doing great. Nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you could make it. I appreciate you taking the time to be here to share your expertise with us on different facets of health and wellness, which you cover extensively in your new book, Focus, Bringing Time, Energy, Money into Flow. And I'm looking forward to discussing some of those concepts with you today.
Cool. That's what I like to talk about. So yeah, it's, I think the world as we know it, people aren't realizing how much this news media and attention economy is pulling us away from focusing on our own lives. And so the world's in chaos and our lives are falling apart, not going where we thought they'd be going. And, people feel helpless. And I think that that's a real crisis, a crisis of consciousness, if you will. That is easily brought back into the nexus of one's control if you know what you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. And the current world events are not making it any easier.
No, there's only, Russia's the new pandemic, right? Like it's
Correct.
just literally
just when we thought it's all over.
It's, it keeps coming. And so there's really only so many arrows you can take before you bleed out. In the martial arts, we had a saying, it's like, I don't care how good you think you are, you stand in the ring long enough, you're going to get punched in the face, right? And so
absolutely, yeah.
You just got to temper. I'm not advocating sticking your head in a hole and ignoring that the world has issues, but you have to temper that with watering your own garden. If not, you're just going to fall apart, and you're not going to be able to help anyone, because you haven't helped yourself first.
Absolutely. And we'll be getting into all of that later on in our conversation. But I want to start by talking about you, Pedram. You've got a lot of skills under your belt. You're a doctor of Chinese medicine, you're a qigong master, a master herbalist, an acupuncturist, and a producer of movies and TV series. But before you started doing all that, you were a Taoist monk. So tell us about that journey and what made you decide to change your course?
Yeah, it's a complicated road, right? But was immigrant kid. What do you do in my generation? Doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? That was kind of the formula back in the day. Now the formula's changed a little bit, and so
where did you come from?
On track. Iran, right after the revolution took off. Okay. And so, we weren't down for what those guys were throwing down. And so we left, with the shirts off on our backs only, and started over. And, for a kid who's trying to, do the right thing and listen to parents who kind of know what's going on in the new world they're in, you study hard, right? So I was number one in my high school, became the guy who, was gonna be a doctor and kind of do what your parents, do what makes your parents happy. And then in UCLA pre-med, I just met a lot of the doctors I was shadowing and just encountered a lot of kind of organizational friction inside the medical industry, and realized pretty quickly that I didn't want to go into traditional medicine. Asked God for a sign, and a book fell out of a bookshelf, which isn't supposed to happen. And so I read the book. It was about a Taoist qigong master leading his disciples across some river using his energy. It was like weird Jedi stuff. I didn't know what the hell I was looking at, but I knew that when you ask God for a clue and a book falls, you should probably listen. And so, read the book, found a Taoist kung fu master, very shortly thereafter, and got pulled into a lineage of Taoist kung fu Jedi guys. And, I just couldn't look back because it was fascinating. It was fascinating stuff. And so I just kept going, right? And, been following the breadcrumbs ever since. It's been a very interesting life, to say the least.
Wow. That's a great story. And I totally understand, the pressures that you went through about conforming to these cultural expectations. I mean, I come from an Indian background, and, we too had that we have those expectations that we should follow a traditional path. So breaking free from that, I know how challenging that can be, and it takes a strong person to do that.
Yeah. And the force of your inner conviction needs to outweigh the filial duties and all the things that kind of come culturally. But at the end of the day, if you don't do what's going to make you happy, what's the point of any of it? What's the point of money, or being a miserable dad to create more miserable kids on the planet? Like, none of it makes sense if you can't have your inner peace. And so you just have to make a decision that is net positive in that direction, right?
And your folks were okay with this?
No, but I mean, you know what? They are now.
They are now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I do what I please. I have a great life. I ski a lot. I make more money than any of my medical doctor friends, and I'm changing the world. Scoreboard, right? Like, it's like, listen, and I told them, I said, look, I'll always figure out a way to make money. If that's what you're worried about, I'll always figure out a way. I'm not going to show up and live in your living room when I'm 40. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But I'm going to follow my bliss, and I'm going to do what I got to do for me, because for me to not, the guy I was shadowing at UCLA way back in the day, was just a miserable human. And he was a famous doctor, and he was just a miserable human. He was unkind to other people. He yelled at subordinates, and just had that kind of like top down angry dude vibe. And this is like the famous guy I was looking to emulate, on this path towards doctordom. And he was one of my brightest angels, because it made me realize that the title bears really nothing on your ultimate happiness, and who you are on the inside. If you're not comfortable with that from the get-go, no matter how many titles or acclaim or fame or money or any of that crap, it's not going to help you. You're just going to be a miserable SOB, addicted to some sort of drug, and just unpleasant to be around. And so it really became a powerful lesson for me to look down the trajectory of a life path that was based on external stimuli and status and all the things that like society kind of leverages, right? To say, this is what you got to do to be happy. And I realized that happiness was an inside game. So I started mining in those areas, right? And started sitting down, doing a lot of meditation, became a monk. I'm a pretty happy guy.
Were you a monk in the United States, or did you travel somewhere when you did that?
Both. So our Grand Master, the complexities of kind of the lineage that I hail from is the communists show up and decide that all religion is wasteful and frivolous. And so they started killing the monks and burning down the temples. So my Grand Master was the last like living descendant of our lineage. He happened to be off property, if you will, visiting another temple when the soldiers showed up, either killed or imprisoned everyone he knew and burned down his temple. And so the monks from the other lineage smuggled him on a boat to Chinatown, San Francisco, and got him out of there, basically. And so he started teaching, in San Francisco, eventually ended up in Los Angeles. So I'm under this like tutelage of a guy who's, just kind of living in San Diego by the time I got to him, but he taught my teachers in LA. And then as I progressed in the lineage and, showed that I'm showing up, if you will. Then I started getting kind of intro letters to different monasteries, and I got to travel through India, Nepal, Thailand. I mean, I've been around now, and so I got to sit with various gurus. So I sat with the Dalai Lama, the Karmapa Lama. Like I did the kind of traveling monk thing, but the core of my training was just hours and hours a week of qigong, meditation, kung fu training.
Wow.
In Los Angeles, California, and it was rigorous. It wasn't as
intensive.
Pretty as yeah, it was intensive, but it was a very urban type of training, which is, and it kind of it points to the thesis of a lot of the work that I put out in my books out there is, nobody has time to run for the hills in the world that we live in. So how do you hold your ground as a householder? And this coming from India, there's the ascetics and the householders. And the ascetics are the less than 1% that renounce the world, move up in the hills, adopt my haircut here and go, and live a life of austerities, versus the householders, the people that live in the world, hail from the world, have, families or whatever and jobs. How do you can't justify 90 minutes of yoga a day. You can't justify all that stuff. How do you live a peaceful, sensible lifestyle in the real world, if you will, and still hold to some sort of ethical morality and some sort of personal spiritual hygiene? And so my pursuit for this kind of the premise of the urban monk is, how do you bring the temple down to your house? How do you live a fulfilling life? And not run from the world.
Yeah. And in your new book, you actually talk about how to use our energy budget, as you call it. And you actually compare the process to tending to a garden. And I'm just curious to know, Pedram, why did you choose a garden as a metaphor to illustrate your teachings in this book?
Yeah, good question. Life is a reflection of kind of the natural environment that we come from. And as abstract and distanced we've become from nature, is where we hail from, and it also is what we understand. So it's like, if I want to lose 100 pounds, it's going to take a minute, right? It's like planting a tomato seed. You don't plant a tomato seed and then check on it and dig it up every day, wondering where the heck your tomatoes are. It takes a good 90 to 100 days for that seed to go in the ground, for you to continually water it and tend to the soil so that it sprouts. And when it sprouts, you don't pluck it out and wonder where your tomatoes are. You have to wait for things to kind of come to harvest and for fruit to bear, if you will, or vegetables to bear in this example. And so looking at life as a gardening process, I think, is a healthy, how do you live your lifestyle in a way where you understand that the ultimate goal might take a minute, and then they're not these like sprints that are filled with stress and, kind of sledgehammer balancing approach, but a methodical way of looking at where you want your life to be in the next 100 days, and living your life accordingly, so that every 100 days your life gets a little further along, with balance, right? And balance doesn't sell, right? Balance isn't sexy, but balance
it
works. No, but that's how nature
people
works.
They want overnight success. They want instant success. Like, tell me how I can get it tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's bullshit. And it's complete bullshit.
It is. It really is.
We've been duped into a belief system that that's how things work, because, look, I grew up in the West, like, I watched Scooby-Doo and had, Cocoa Pebbles.
Love Scooby-Doo.
You know what I mean? But like, that's it. The commercials and the way they were trying to brainwash us as kids carries into, your news feed, and carries into a much more insidious media play that is now kind of developed the collective consciousness, where it's just like, red team, blue team, or, good versus evil, and all the kind of narratives that then drive us to give away our power and not think for ourselves. And, if you don't liberate yourself from that, then you're just a slave to the circumstantial information that's being driven to drive you. And you know what, at some point, someone's got to step up and say enough. And so, I'm not the only guy doing this. Obviously, I'm one of the guys doing this. And there's a lot of misinformation and distortion, trying to convince people that, you know, they're listening to one podcast away, or one book, or one mantra, or some, you know, super pill or stem cell procedure that's going to like turn their life around and be the game changer. Whereas they could just methodically make better decisions every day and actually change their life. I mean, you know, what's it going to be, real or fake?
Right, right. And I think it's because people are just, you know, they give into their impulses. You know, I think they don't want to put in the hard work that is actually what is required for your garden to grow. You know, you got to water it, you got to add fertilizer, you got to you got to remove the weeds, as you mentioned in the book. And that can be a pretty cumbersome process.
What's funny is people will fall for the false narrative that work is too much work, but then they live lives that don't work and are a lot more work, because now the kids got problems in school, or, you know, I'm worried about being fat all the time, or my migraines are out of control. I don't have enough money. I can't make ends meet. And so instead of getting your life together and putting in the steps to actually get your life together, you will opt in for the lazy path of having a life that doesn't work, that's 10 times more work. And so the path of least resistance is the path of the sheeple, to just be told what to do and think and follow a narrative that doesn't work. But you are a great consumer of pharmaceutical drugs. You are a great consumer of food that makes you fat, that then allows you to take diet pills. It's you fall onto the treadmill of the matrix. And that's the path of least resistance, is the path of, you know, really lying on the sacrificial altar of an industry that is not ethically oriented and isn't there to actually help you. And the harder path, quote unquote, is waking up and being happy and becoming kind of self-actualized as a human that can actually do things on this planet. And, you know, it's not easy to wake up, because then you have to face all the kind of inconsistencies of your belief system and who you think you are. Yeah. But, you know, a couple of years after that, then you live an amazing life, and people look at you like you're some sort of lunatic because you're not following the same scripts as they are. But you're happy, you're healthy, you're wealthy, you're wise, and you are an exception to the rule of the people that are just, you know, pissed off that their team lost that week, or, you know what I mean? It's like people are just into things that are boring, right?
That's true. That's true. And you mentioned in your book, earlier in the book, that a lot of people right now are chronically tired, right? They just feel depleted all the time, and they just don't know how to manage their energy. So, in your experience, why do you think this is the case?
I'm going to go eat a cheeseburger that is going to activate my immune system with all the crap in it. That's also going to take a lot of hydrogen and a lot of HCl basically to break down. I'm going to put a lot of energy into breaking down this burger. I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be less effective at work. And I'm going to then drink a diet soda because my stomach's bothering me. And then my blood sugar management goes off. My insulin levels are off. My A1C is off. Now I have to, you know, take time out of my day to go to the doctor who's going to throw pills at me. Now I got to pay for the pills and just go down the hill, right? It just keeps tumbling. And that's just in one example. I think that, you know, if you had 10 bars of energy that were required to run your life, and your basic kind of bodily functions require maybe, you know, 5 of those, but because of your inefficiencies, you're already, you know, using 7 or 8 of those bars. Now you're eating low nutrient food, high calorie food, which is doing a yo-yo with your blood sugar and your energy metabolism. And you can't manage your stress because you're letting external stimuli push you around instead of realizing that it's your reaction to those stimuli that determines, you know, the outcomes in your body. You're already at kind of the breadline of energy, and then, you know, you read the news. You know, some guy cuts you off. It's so easy to just flip, right? And so we don't really instill in our culture that good maintenance is to have fuse lengthening exercises, fuse lengthening practices in your life that then allow you to have some cushion for when the guy cuts you off, or when, you know, Russia bombs some, you know, some orphanage or something. And then you just, you know, you fall into, I'm having a bad day. and then you're just back on your heels, and you are constantly trying to kind of make up for that. Do I need an Advil now? Do I need a Xanax now?
It's just a lack of education, right? I mean, it's just not having the right information about what's going to help, and in the conditions that you're dealing with.
Yes, but I would say that is 30% of the battle.
Oh, okay.
We live in a time right now where there's a lack of information. We're on a podcast that can reach, the entire world with a click of a button. And, the information now is being disseminated. Why is the world still messed up? Because the flip side of that is the personal accountability side, where I've read for years that yoga is good for me. I know that yoga is awesome. Have I done yoga today? Right? And so the problem is people think that the information is their salvation, where I come from the school, I'm a martial artist. Either you're training, like I can read all the kind of books all the books in the world about how to throw a right punch or, block the right way. If I don't practice it, I'm getting punched in the face, right? If I talk about qigong and I don't do it, then I'm a hypocrite, and I don't have any of the actual benefits that are derived from the practice of qigong. I just know intellectually that it's good for me, so I can tell my friends about it at Burning Man. It's just stupid, right? It's just the way the world works. Is everyone thinks that information is the currency. I'm impressed by people who actually do the lifestyles, do the work, and do the work has become so unpopular because, and listen, I own a media company. I'm very well educated on how, my competitors run their businesses and everything. Everyone understands that do the work isn't a popular message. So everyone's in the business of selling sugar cereal to children. Well, we know they're not going to do the work. So let's give them the next Hail Mary solution that they believe is going to, do something. They're going to go buy, cans of this or powders of that. And then, the next mangosteen or the next, xylitol will come along. And, it's just literally, the Buddha called it feeding hungry ghosts, right?
Yeah.
So it's not real. It's not real. What's real is the person who gets up and does the breathwork exercise, the person who meditates, who can then have a discernible relationship with a meditation practice and then talk about it coming from experience, not someone who, listened to all the podcasts and thinks they know everything. That person is just talk.
Right. So for someone who's listening to this and, they're saying, oh my God, that's me. I got all the information, but I don't know how to apply it. What's one tip you would give them to get the ball rolling?
Start with something. I get up and I do qigong. I meditate. Then I start my day. I walk.
Just do it, as Nike says.
Just do it. I don't care. And so what happens is, a lot of these people are stuck in analysis paralysis. They're like, oh, do I do a Iyengar or Ashtanga? Do I do, it's like, they start with something and do something every day, and you'll find what works for you, and then keep going, right? But everyone is stuck in this place where they're not actually doing the things that they know are good for them, and talk is cheap. And, those aren't the people that get better. I've seen thousands and thousands of patients in my day, and the ones that get better are the ones that get involved, right? Not the people that say, doctor, fix me. Not the people that have read everything and understand what you're saying, but still don't do anything because they're just being lazy. You got to do the work.
Right. And I mean, they could also be having subconscious blocks, right? That could be getting in the way. I mean, that's possible, right?
Well, I mean, we all do. Listen, I get up every day and do an hour and a half of qigong, and I have plenty of subconscious blocks. I do it anyways. So I'm just tired of empowering the negativity to bring up an excuse that weighs more than your impetus and drive to do something. At the end of the day, it's a function of your attention and your intention. Focus on what you want to do and drive your will to it, and you will build that muscle, and you will be better at taking care of yourself, and you will be better at following through with your word every single day you do it. But unless you start doing it, you're just sinking into the couch, and you are putting yourself into a one down position, and you are giving more power to your excuses than your positive lifestyle behavior. Sorry, right? And I think, the other day, like my kid came in 11th place in the ski race this weekend, and he was bummed that he didn't get a trophy. I'm like, buddy, you get the trophy by winning. There's no 11th place trophy. I am sorry. Speak faster next time. You know, move your ass, right? Move your ass. And I'm not doing it in a non-compassionate way, right? But, you know, at the end of the day, I think the world has taken a really negative turn, and it has been, there's plenty of books and evidence to suggest this, that the advertising industry and, you know, kind of the commercial interests have realized that it's easier to kind of pet your insecurities and pet your excuses and have you spend money towards quick fixes that don't work than convince you that you got to get up off your ass and take ownership for your life. And I think that that is an ethical crime, and it is disempowering humans who would otherwise understand that, yes, you do got to get up and do your thing, whatever that is, do the work.
Do the work. I totally agree with you. Yeah. I mean, and I try to apply that in my life too. I remember when I started the habit of running early in the morning, it was really hard initially, but you know, I just kept going. And then I noticed that after like a couple of weeks, I got used to it and I started building momentum, and it started getting easier. And I think I really embodied that concept from this experience of, you know, becoming a runner. And I think that everyone needs to find that one thing that can help them really understand what it means to just get off your butt and do it.
That's it. And then as you started running every day, it got a little less sucky.
Yes.
And then the momentum started carrying you into saying, wow, I definitely feel better. Wow, my body looks better. I had more energy.
Yeah.
And then you start stacking data points to convince your brain that doing the right thing is the right thing. Whereas, you know, all of the excuses, hey, it's cold, it's dark, my knees don't do it, or whatever it is,
yeah,
easily outweigh the get up and go. And the premise is the entire industry feeds the other way, right? Because that's what you want to hear, and they want to tell you what you want to hear, you know. And I stopped caring about, you know, people liking me a long time ago, because I'm just going to be the tough, honest guy, and I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm telling you need to hear, right? Because I think that ethically, that's the only way to go about helping the world.
You're very much influenced by the Eastern traditions. And one of the frameworks that you mentioned in the book is about the three treasures of Taoists, the Jing, Qi, and Shen. Could you please break those down for us and tell us how they feature in our health and vitality?
So your Shen is your spirit, your focus, your attention. And as the saying goes, the qi goes to where the Shen is focused, right? So where your focus is, your energy flows to, and that will eventually congeal into material reality. Your Jing is your essence. It's what you come in with in this world, and you want to reinforce and build your vitality. So that becomes the basis of this kind of bioelectric engine that then metabolizes food and takes oxygen and turns it into this usable energy. And the question is, for what? To vote blue or red? To, you know, buy Zara or, you know, Gucci? For what? And then the Shen really is the spirit of self-illumination and the introspective nature of trying to figure out who you are and what this show is all about, and using that to then leverage a direction that is aligning your purpose, your heart, your mind, your soul with the external play of this thing called your life, right? It's like, I have multiple titles. I don't even know what to call myself anymore, but let's just say I self-identify as an accountant, right? Does that mean that I just hang out with accountant people and I behave the way accountants behave? And, you know, I can't do yoga because that's weird, or it's unchristian, or I can't, you know, do this because I'm Jewish, or do that because I'm Muslim or Hindu. And you fall into all of these kind of constraints of your identity because you've never introspectively looked and asked the questions, who am I? Where did that question just come from? And who just perceived the question, right? And so the Shen really becomes the ultimate goal. Is to, you know, the metaphor that the Taoists use is, if it was a candle, the Jing would be the wax. The fire, the actual flame, would be the qi, which is the kind of combustion of the material into the energetic. But the real juice of it is the halo around the fire, which is the Shen, and the glow that comes from this kind of process of metabolism in life. the glow into the dark room and what that is, that's worth looking at, right? And that's worth looking at in nature and the reality that we live in of, you know, kind of the natural world and what these things are. And more importantly, turning that around, looking at what that means inside of oneself to wake up to who we really are. Because most of us are just living in a mimetic hell of viral, you know, kind of mental messaging, you know, with identity that has been constructed and patched together with bubblegum. And we've never really looked at who we are. And that to me is a crisis.
Okay. And so how do these all work together? Like, how do we keep tabs on all of them?
I mean, so any differentiation is just for our brains to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in the universe goes down to almost an infinite level of depth in small scale and all the way back up to the universal scale. And what I'm talking about as physical is just a way for the brain to grasp the difference between physical, energetic, and spiritual, which are all overlaid on each other. So it's all life, it's all one, right? Says the yogis, right? But the way you want to look at that in kind of a useful framework for you know, everyday life as a householder is, I want to reinforce my vitality every day with life-affirming practices like, you know, eating good food, drinking enough water, sipping herbal tea, you know, running, exercising, sleeping, you know, the lifestyle parameters. And then, you know, using your vitality in a way that doesn't burn the candle on both ends. I don't want to have a super stressful lifestyle. I want to, you know, I want my kids to know their dad, you know, all the things that kind of, you know, bring balance to a life that doesn't drain your vitality. And that is how your energy runs, right? What are your energy economics? Is stress overwhelming you? Is poor lifestyle overwhelming you? Are you not sleeping? And so then once you kind of adjust the burn rate of your lifestyle, if you will, so that you're not net negative, you have extra energy in case of an emergency, you're not, you know, gasping for breath every moment because your life is out of control and in chaos, then you have the time to question reality and figure out who you are and really reconcile what you're doing with where you thought you'd be and where you're going. If you are a miserable person living a life that is unfulfilling for you right now, how do you think your life's going to be any different in 10 years? And are there just a few pipe dreams that have been put in there mentally as patches to make it all okay? Or realistically, are you going to have the same circumstances, if not worse, 10 years from now, and be in a position where your life is working equally as bad, right? With less energy, less vitality, less gas in the tank to change anything. So, you know, to me, it's like navigation. Really, I do like backcountry backpacking. And, you know, you stop, you get your bearings, and you go, okay, well, you know, we get to that mountain peak and then look and see where the valley is and then reorient so I don't, you know, track off for 20 miles if I head in the wrong direction right now. And I think that's where a lot of people have really missed the mark. And that's why I talk about life gardening and all these things in my books, is if your focus isn't introverted back on your own life in a meaningful way where you kind of analyze where you're at and where you're going, it's just going to get worse, man, right? It doesn't get better, it gets worse. Now, you are a consumer of pharmaceuticals for mood, for blood pressure, for A1C.
They all numb you. They actually make things worse. They actually cloud your system, and it makes it harder for you to really get in touch with what's going on inside you, right?
Yeah, and you know, they're the natural extension to the mental patch of some sort of weird rationalization that somehow some Hail Mary is going to make your life better if your life is, you know, heading in this track now. It's like if I'm veering off track and I'm heading towards the swamp and I don't really have any measures to move me away from the swamp and back to, like, you know, the valley or the mountain peak that I thought I was going to get to, with more time, I'm just going to keep stumbling in the swamp, right? And that swamp, you know, has consequences. And so I think a lot of people have, you know, fallen into this narrative that it's going to be okay. Something from the outside is going to come in and just, you know, bolt of blue is going to change everything. And I think that Hail Mary visual of how life works isn't how Jesus taught anything. And it certainly isn't, showing any evidence of working with the thousands of patients and millions of, people I've interacted with over the years. It's the people who get up and do something about their lives, they have better lives.
Right. So I think I think people tend to treat the symptoms rather than get to the root cause of their problems, right?
Yeah, and I think I want to dissect that a little bit, because people hear that a lot on podcasts and books, and they're and I think the mimetics of kind of that lexicon are like, oh yeah, this is that, oh this is that, and so like symptoms, root cause. What is the root cause? If you have an unhealthy root system with bad bacteria and aberrant species and unhealthy soil conditions, the plant itself becomes weak, and then out to the branches and the fruits or whatever kind of plant it is, everything from the root goes south, yet you're spraying the leaves of the plant, right? And so when we talk about a gardening metaphor, a good gardener always gets down to the soil and figures out the essence of the substrate that this thing is standing in, right? If you're coming to me back when I was playing doctor and saying, hey, I have headaches, and all I do is try to treat your headaches, and I don't realize that your husband is yelling at you, or you have mold in your house, or the circumstance that wraps around your life is what's causing the headaches, you get the world that we live in, right? And so you got to swim upstream to the substrate of the life that you're looking at and be like, wow, you're miserable in your marriage. Wow, you're lying to yourself about X, Y, and Z. And then you start to get real with yourself, and then the problems start to resolve in a meaningful way, right? And these are just examples, obviously, but anyone listening to this, what is that in your life, right?
Yeah. So even the emotional issues that you're going through can cause those issues that you're facing.
I mean, that's the catch, right?
Yeah.
Is everything is bubbling up in front of you to show you the problems you're not willing to look at. And so, again, the answer isn't outside of you. Now, you could find help, you could find doctors and therapists and coaches and whatever.
And healers too. Yeah.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, if you think they're going to fix you, you're deluded.
Yeah.
You fix, right? You're recruiting helpers, but the nexus of control, the agency of the person who changes their life and becomes a self-individuated, actualized person that can actually have control over, the direction of their life to a certain degree, that person made the choice to do that, and that person takes the steps to do that. And then, okay, help me do burpees, or what's a good smoothie recipe? That's fine, but the smoothie recipe is never going to change your life, and that's the problem. And that's what everyone thinks is like, oh my God, I found this celery juice, and suddenly I found all the answers. Come on, right? Come on, that's trite.
Right. So it's a lifestyle, is what you're saying.
It's more than a lifestyle. Again, that's lifestyle is kind of like a word, and people go, oh, it's a lifestyle, right? And we do these roll-ups into these kind of like mental construct categories where people are like, oh yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, I'm trying to simplify it so that people actually can boil it down, because you're giving a lot of great information. Boil it down to like a couple of words. And I know it's hard to do because it's such a complex topic.
No, I don't do that. I don't do that. And I actively will push back against it, because I've been on thousands.
Okay, great.
and with all due respect, like, this is what podcasters do.
No, absolutely.
And people are like, okay, so what are the 3 things I can do to, and I'm just like, no. I need you to think about your life.
Read the book.
Yeah, read the book, but I need you, more importantly, I need you to step into your life and think about things that aren't roll-ups into categories saying, oh, I heard lifestyle is good, celery juice. And so I don't do that, because I've been on enough podcasts where I realize that everyone who's like information mongering goes, oh yeah, okay, that guy said lifestyle. That's not what that guy said at all. That guy said, wake up. Right, okay. Right. Yeah. Wake up. And so the word lifestyle,
I'm going to be conscious of that.
a mimetic macro that pulls people into saying, oh, he's saying the same shit everyone else was saying. Yeah, I've heard that. Nothing works, right? And so the real activation of that is step into your life, stop fooling yourself, and become the person that you expect you to be for your kids and your future generations by realizing that you don't have a minute to waste. Exactly. Because your attention is the currency of your entire life force. And your attention right now thinks that, it's Ukraine or coronavirus or
oh yeah, I find that happening to myself too. I mean, I'm trying to avoid looking at my Twitter feed because it just sucks me in. So, and I think that's like the case for everybody right now.
Yeah. And there's a balance, right? Where, I don't want to be uninformed about what's happening in the world. But, I use this example like years ago. I remember catching myself, and I'm a meditator, right? Like, so I'm trained to look inward and be like, hey, what is this? Right? I found myself in a foul mood. And I'm like, why am I in this bad mood? And I traced it back to checking the score of the Laker game, and my team had lost.
Oh.
And I just started laughing to myself about such a trivial occurrence that subconsciously flipped my mood and flavored my day in a direction that then had me probably not be nice to someone at work or whatever it is.
So true.
And the downstream consequences of that. And if you think about it, you check a headline that shows like, I don't know, some horrific thing happening in Ukraine that deserves our attention in a lot of ways.
Of course, yes.
And drives our mood and our frame of mind into this despair of like, what are we going to do? How, the world isn't safe, and all the different kind of emotional upheaval that knocks us off our perch and makes us less capable of being loving, kind, useful humans that are actually, needed in this world. Then maybe the answer is go donate to some cause in Ukraine or go pick up a gun and fight or whatever. But you can't sit there again and take arrows all day and expect to be able to be a strong person in your life, right? So there's a very fine balance there about being informed and caring, and being overwhelmed and frustrated and shocked into not being able to live your life in a way that's meaningful and helpful to those poor people in Ukraine, right? Like, you're just going to be depressed. That doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So take action on those things as well.
Yeah, take action. Yeah. Take action. And here's the problem. That there are people who have agency, like the girl who is running every morning, who fought her demons and got up and started running, and now runs a podcast and lives a life that is working. Probably, in my assertion, has more agency to help the people in Ukraine than the person who's sinking into their couch listening to podcasts and being like, oh yeah, I've heard all this, but I don't do anything about my life. So the person who's taking action in their own life absolutely has a lot more potential to take action for the poor life of someone in some Ukrainian bombing than the person who is stunned into complicity, not doing anything for themselves, and therefore less capable of doing anything for the world, right? That is overwhelmingly stressing them out.
Right. So it benefits both you and the people around you, and even the world, when you are willing to be accountable for your actions. And
100%. I mean, you go back to the kind of oxygen mask thing for the airplane, right?
Yeah.
Put your mask on first, so that you could help the kid. And if that applied to everything you did in life, how would you frame your mornings differently? How would you frame your lunches differently? How would you restructure your life garden in a way that helped support multiple plants that are bearing fruit, not just for you and your family, but then overflow into your community and your world? The perspective is all wrong, right? If you can't help yourself out of bed, how the hell are you going to help the Ukraine? Let's get real.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Pedram, thank you so much. This has been tremendously insightful, and I'm sure that a lot of people will benefit from listening to this. I mean, you've given us some tough love here, which I think is really, really needed. And yeah, it's been so wonderful talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for being a megaphone, right? That's the world needs it, right? And, again,
Yeah.
I encourage everyone who listened to this to understand that it's not the information that you gleaned here. You could Google information. Hopefully it's a little bit of a kick in the ass and some inspiration to actually activate and use information in your
Mhm.
life so that you can have change, effectively actualize what it is that you want to do so you can change your life. Because more information isn't enough. It's what you do with it.
Absolutely. And speaking of information, I just want to quickly mention your book, Pedram Shojai's new book, Focus, Bringing Time, Energy, and Money into Flow, is now available in all major bookstores and on his website, theurbanmonk.com.
Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Pedram, it's been a pleasure, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.